Now, before we properly begin this episode, all you Mumbaikers, I have a special announcement for you. This Sunday, we're organizing a pre race and post race show along with a race screening for the Austrian GP at Dadar Social. That's right, you and I get to interact with each other and also many other like minded Formula One fans to discuss Formula One in our interactions and also to share your opinions on the sport. Moreover, there will be a very interesting Formula One quiz where you get to test out your Austrian GP and F1 knowledge. And best of all, the main event promises to be a great one. Apart from Max Verstappen running away with it, we know that's going to happen. But in the midfield, it promises to be an incredible fight at a circuit that allows for a lot of overtaking. So the show should be amazing to watch together. And of course, we get to chat Formula One in person and just generally have a really fun time. Register now by clicking the link in the description. You'll be there, won't you? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Inside Line F1 podcast. This is our Austrian GP preview. My name is Somal Arora. I am the host of the Indian Racing League broadcasts on Star Sports. And joining me as always, the former marketing head of that one team you used to remember from the mid-2010s, the Sahara Force India Formula One team. He's the man who ran the Force India Academy and is now an FIA-accredited Formula One journalist for the Viaplay network in Norway. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Kunal Shah with us. And Kunal, the Austrian GP is finally here. We have 2 qualifyings and 2 races this time. So the only real thing that I can think of this weekend is that we're just going to watch Max qualify twice in P1 and win the race twice as well. We were scared of his domination before. This is just going to be new levels.
This is going to be absolutely new levels. To me, there's going to be this whole chat. It's a sprint weekend. The last time we had a non-Red Bull on pole, it was a sprint weekend in Baku. Yay, we have some hope. Then there will be more.
Wait. Leclerc actually took pole position in Baku. My God. Yeah. Did you remember it?
Also, it's been a year since Ferrari last won, and then everything else is unfolded. Mattia, Frederick Vasseur, whatever. Yeah, but I'm not done. There is more hope that everybody in Formula One will keep driving us, including us driving it in Formula One. What's the hope? The last time Mercedes actually won a weekend was also a sprint weekend in Brazil. Questions, will Red Bull Racing get it wrong with just one free practice session available for setup again? They'll keep driving that, keep building hope till Max just gets poles 2 times a row, race wins 2 times a row, fastest lap of the race 2 times a row. And Checo Perez has 2 chances to get it right in qualifying.
Wait, 2 chances to get it right or 2 chances to get it wrong? Because the way things are going so far in the last 3 weekends, it seems more of the latter. But you know what? Let's just start with Red Bull Racing. Normally, Kunal, on the Inside Line F1 podcast, at least since the mid part of 2022, we've only been giving Red Bull Racing an average of a minute and a half on the podcast. I think because this weekend we had Helmut Marko on the show and he gave us so many special insights and such a controversial, I'm losing my English today. It's beautiful. Such a controversial quote about Nick de Vries that has now been blown up all over the internet by so many major news publications like The Race, Autosport, racefans.net, and so many others as well. We should actually give Red Bull Racing, instead of a minute and a half, I think 2 minutes. They deserve it. We should give them more time.
I can also justify why 2 minutes. I'm also a marketer at heart. What's the science behind 2 minutes? 1 minute is towards the time that Max can finish ahead of everybody else if we have a dry race. We have 2 races this week or 1.5. So we are like, hey, we'll probably, if you add up all the time that Max finishes ahead, it's probably going to be 2 minutes. But
not bad.
Yes. Firstly, thank you very much for all of Formula One. Literally, we've had like 6 to 7 million impressions of the Marco episode that we did. Some of the best media houses reached out, used all the quotes, promoted our episode. We've had a blast. Yes, it was unfortunately the Nick de Vries quote that got, I would say, misunderstood or misquoted or out of context, because pretty much not everybody who consumed, I'm sure I know 6 million people haven't gone and heard the full episode, which I absolutely recommend you all to do so you get context. And what Marco did was pretty simple. I mean, you love Carlos Sainz. You always bet on Carlos Sainz every time for a Grand Prix weekend. I don't.
Don't expose me.
Yeah, and I don't. And that's what he and Christian Horner did with Nick de Vries. And hey, guess what? Everybody thinks it's unfair and, Marco went crazy, whatever. But guys, girls, please go ahead and listen to the full episode. There was such amazing insight, such lovely stories from history of Dietrich Mateschitz and the Red Bull Junior Driver Program, discussions about Alexander Albon and the likes.
Yeah.
So go ahead, listen to the past episode.
It was amazing. Honestly, it's not just a shameless cheap plug, but he reveals so much about how he actually scouts drivers as well. And also just essentially what he looks for in a junior driver, which to me was amazing. And the amount of insights that he shared about just how much progress and how many updates they get on each and every single young driver, frankly, to me, is ridiculous. But also, Kunal, we got to know more about what Helmut Marko does outside of a race weekend as well. We also got to know why Sebastian Vettel, maybe or maybe not, could be his next replacement at the Red Bull Driver Academy. He's revealed something big about this, about what he thinks about Sebastian's capabilities, and it might break a few hearts, but I think let's not break people's hearts any further. Let's actually get to talking more about this race weekend, because the hearts are already broken in the case of Sergio Perez. He must dread the format. I know a minute ago you mentioned a lot more about Sergio potentially having the chance to mess it up twice this weekend. I mean, think of the pressure. Max has won the last few races. He's absolutely dominating it, swamping everyone with just a wave of great driving that nobody else is able to keep up with. And then you have two opportunities where it's just going to be measured up against him. If I was Checo, Kunal, firstly, I wouldn't be in Formula One because I wouldn't be half as fast or mentally strong. But if I was Checo, I'd be a little scared heading into this weekend, especially considering how spotless Max's record is here.
Well, if I was Checo, I would be absolutely confident heading into this weekend. And I'll tell you why. Helmut Marko, everybody thinks he's put Nick de Vries under the bus, whatever. He's not, guys. Let's not sensationalize it. But the way Marko came out in support of Checo Perez, especially with, Daniel Ricciardo doing a test and so on. So why don't we just do this? We're going to plug or replug what Marco said about Perez and Ricciardo right after what I'm going to finish saying now, which is, hey, I've just finished what I was saying. So let's go ahead and hear Helmut Marko.
First of all, Checo is still second in the championship. And the first goal is to defend his position. And I'm sure if he's focusing on just achieving good results, that he will be a good valiant driver to Red Bull Racing. With Ricciardo, he will have a test in Silverstone, and from there we see where he is standing. But that is nothing for immediately. We have a contract with Checo which goes till the end of 24. And of course we have to think what will happen after that. And if Ricciardo recovers, if it is the old Ricciardo which we knew, which was a very competitive driver. I don't exactly know what happened at Renault and at McLaren, especially why he lost the edge. But of course we have to evaluate it. But nothing for the straight away.
I find it interesting, Kunal, because when talking about Nick de Vries, Helmut was open in saying that, we are all slightly disappointed. I think we've been proven wrong. But with Sergio, when the chat came to Sergio, as we all just listened to a minute ago, he didn't say anything. Even though, if you put it in the contextual sense, in the last few races, Sergio's performances haven't been just about as much better as Nick de Vries' performances. So I find it interesting what that dynamic is, that Helmut is still protecting him a little bit. But I'm also so excited to see that Silverstone test. But let's bring the matter back onto this weekend, because I think internally we've all reassured, right, that Max is going to win 2 races and qualify first twice. I think that's clear, right?
I would guess so. And why don't we do one thing? Why don't we all just watch it together? Ladies and gentlemen, Soumil Arora is hosting a live race screening, the Grand Prix, mind you, not the sprint. Okay. He's hosting a live race screening at the Dadar Social in Mumbai this Sunday. And he's also going to host a pre-race quiz. Also going to host interactions. And trust me, his interactions turn into heated debates where the only thing left is fans of rival teams and rival drivers don't end up getting physical with each other. And, the hooliganism as we've seen in football. I'm saying it on a lighter note. I know hooliganism isn't welcome, shouldn't ever be so. But yes, Dadar Social in Mumbai this weekend, 5:30 p.m. onwards. Be there. You can get your tickets from the description of this episode.
Oh, it's going to be fun. It's so amazing to interact Formula One with all of our listeners and also many people who just randomly walk in for the race and end up becoming, again, members of our Inside Line Club, as we like to call it. It's so amazing because we get to hear everyone's opinions. And best of all, Kunal, watch a good race together. I stress upon this point because in the grander scheme of things, we might all look at Formula One at the moment in time and be like, boring. But if you just exclude Max Verstappen, I know deep down we all want to do that because he's making it very boring. But he's too good. He's just too good. But if you exclude Max Verstappen for a second, just look at the juicy battle we have for P2. Think about it. We're seeing Hamilton versus Russell versus Alonso versus Charles Leclerc. And I'm deliberately not putting Lance Stroll and Carlos Sainz because they're just in a battle to see who can disappoint each other more.
Oops.
But that is just the truth. But that is so amazing, right? And last week in Canada as well, we were just seeing a flat out battle, a reincarnation of the 2007 battle between Hamilton and Alonso. And it just never gets boring. So let's just assume that Max isn't here because this weekend, we have an amazing three-way fight for Formula 1.5. I'm ready to watch it.
Yeah, it is actually down to, there are two championships running in Formula One. Formula One championship is just one contender, which is Max Verstappen, which is what we keep talking about. And, it'll be a typical thing. Can Ferrari be in the fight because of circuit characteristics? It'll rain? Will Max still, be challenged, etc.? And trust us, guys, that's true. There will be different weekends where there will be challenges. But we don't know yet how much reserve Max and Red Bull have because we clearly believe they've not been pushed to a level where they need to extract every possible reserve, right? But let's look and see how that goes. But I was saying there are two championships. First is Formula 1.25 or Formula 1.5. However, we put it to everybody else, P2 to P10 in the Constructors' Championship. And then the second is the Formula One Accounting Championship, because the FIA now has, come up with some rules of how ancillary businesses will be accounted, audited, and suddenly from, having the best engineers in Formula One, F1 teams are now having the best engineers and the best accountants in Formula One. Every, like Toto Wolff said, every screw and nail and whatever has to be accounted for. So let's see how that goes. But truthfully, I am most excited about both the qualifying sessions this weekend, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is it's a short circuit. We're going to keep hearing that. Short circuit, 3 DRS zones, 10 corners, out of which 3 are literally not corners, so 7 corners, and just 2 of them turn left. We're going to keep hearing these facts, which is true. It's a lovely circuit, elevation changes. I'm eager to see two things. How close will the pole position margin be? I think last year was 0.029, and I remember because 29 was my birth date. 29 also comes, 11 times a year, depending what year it is. Anyway, yeah. Also, the gap between P1 and P20 in Q1, we're going to have 2 Q1, so 1 Q1 and 1 SQ1. What's that gap going to eventually be? So I'm really excited about qualifying, and there will be traffic. There will be track limits. This circuit will be spoken about. But Samuel, which is your favorite corner around this circuit? Österreich-Ring, A1 Ring, now Red Bull Ring.
My favorite corner is what MotoGP calls Turn 2, which is basically just the corner where you keep your steering wheel straight and brake for the next turn. It's such an amazing corner. You know what, Kunal? It requires such great skill. You need to be absolutely on the limit to be making sure that your car goes as fast as possible over there. And sometimes some drivers can't even do that. Because remember in 2021, was it, that George Russell actually went off the track at that very turn 2 section because he was watching someone else battle in front of him. And that can also potentially happen in Austria as well. But I want to touch up upon qualifying here for a second, because you're so right, Kunal. All these teams are so close to each other in qualifying. We're going to see Max also potentially challenged. And when you mention short circuit, I know all the commentators will say this as well, but it's true. There's only like 7 real corners where you can gain or lose time. So how well do you have to nail all those corners is just frankly mind-blowing to me. But also in the race as well. Do you remember what happened last year in sprint qualifying? Or in the sprint race here, Kunal? Something very interesting happened last year.
Which,
apart from Ferrari messing up on Sunday, but on Saturday there was something very fun.
which was it something to do with? Oh yeah, I think was it something to do with Mick Schumacher? Yeah,
It was.
yeah, Mick Schumacher.
Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton couldn't get past Mick Schumacher. Even though we've got a ton of straights, this circuit is still hard to pass on because, crucially, turn 1 has that brutal sausage curb on the outside. Turn 2 is just, again, a good place to pass. But if you do get past someone at turn 2, there's always turn 3 coming up next where there is DRS. So it could backfire. So realistically, you've got to play this mental mind game and this game of racing chess of sorts. And that is going to be so much fun because these new cars can follow, but can you actually make a move? Because space, especially on the outside of turn 3, just ask Alex Albon, is so tight.
You know, you're confusing people because turn 3 is actually the right-hander on the top of the crest. And Albon had it at turn 4.
Turn 2 doesn't exist. Turn 2 doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I was kidding. It's just a straight corner. It's only 9 corners. It doesn't have 10 corners. Whoever said it has 10 corners is blind.
You mentioned sausage curbs. You know, everybody should know, our listeners should know, these cars which generate a lot of downforce from the underbody are actually vegan cars. They do not like sausages unless they're plant-based. Okay.
Sorry. What? You just actually let that slide, Kunal.
Yeah, I'm just promoting being plant-based, you know, like Lewis Hamilton and myself.
Vegan
The only thing
Formula
we have in common is that. But no, on a serious note, you know, riding these curbs usually can damage floors, can compromise. So could that will be, something that people will sort of, factor in. But this circuit also, Lance Stroll for once actually turned out and said, this circuit is of 2 distinct halves. The first half is full of straights, all 3 DRS zones, high-speed straights with, literally stop-and-go corners. And then the second half is fast and flowy corners. And it's going to be an engineer's nightmare. That's what I'm actually looking forward to. But they did this last year, so they will be smarter this year because you have to find the setup compromise between the different characteristics of, the corners that this circuit has. And interestingly, 23 different winners have won here in the last 36 races. So could it be a different winner? Could it be Lance Stroll? God knows. Who knows? There are 404 points available in the Drivers' Championship leading up to this weekend, but there are 34 points that Max Verstappen or whoever else can score a maximum points. That's 8%, almost 8% of points that can be, scored this weekend after 404. And last 3 races have been won by 3 different drivers. So lots of hope going into this weekend.
Lots of it. So much of it on the upgrades as well, Kunal, because a lot of teams like McLaren, like Mercedes, Ferrari as well bringing in. I think not Ferrari really, but as far as I know, McLaren are bringing in a big upgrade. Haas are basically using this race as a test session of sorts to try out their new upgrade, which could solve their tire wear. There's also Mercedes bringing in something as well. Lots of teams, naturally, this being another European race that they don't have to fly to, bringing in so many parts. But the fun part is, upgrades may not always be upgrades. And so there may be a lot of hope from some teams, but then they may just not perform because not every single upgrade can deliver. Because it's all theoretical, right? And they couldn't really predict porpoising, so you can't really properly predict the effect of every upgrade. So the whole mixing up of the field, just to what degree that happens will be interesting to say the least. I wonder where Alpine will be though.
Alpine will want to show a great performance given that they've just announced new funding. But yeah, you're right. Upgrades could, it means you're visually upgrading the car, but could that be downgrading in terms of performance? And interestingly, we've reached a stage where teams are bringing upgrades even to races like Monaco, where you can't really test them, and then to races in Austria, where you literally have no time to test them. Like Fernando Alonso, he said, we had upgrades in Canada. But in a race like Austria, where you just have one free practice session, they may not have enough track time to actually explore setup options and sort of fine tune their setup. So that in itself is the challenge. And frankly, that's the challenge I would love for Formula One teams to have all weekend. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of action on track and off track. There is a jetpack operator who's also going to be practicing his setup on the Friday evening. So just keep that in mind.
Interesting.
I will love to see how Red Bull activate this weekend. It's their home race, 101st race win could happen, etc., etc. And they usually bring a lot of entertainment as well, the off-track entertainment. But yes, let's go back to upgrades. I think Alpine made a lot of headlines. They've been valued at $900 million thereabouts. They have a 200 million euro investment. Some of it coming from Michael Jordan and a dude named Ryan Reynolds. No.
Michael B. Jordan. There's a difference. It's not the same one.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not my name there. I couldn't have paid that kind of money.
No, but the fun fact is, it's so similar to that quote that Ryan Reynolds made in Deadpool, the situation at Alpine, where he said, you know what we need to do? We need to build an effing team. We need them tough, morally flexible, and young enough so that they can carry this franchise to 10 to 12 years. I think at the moment Alpine are. They're just carrying forward to 10 to 12 years of mediocrity at the moment. And so it's just interesting that people will pay anything for a Formula One team at the moment in time. It just shows you all the hype, because now they're no longer a proper, factory team. You know what, Kunal? Because Renault, the parent company, only owns the engine department of that team. And I wonder how much stake they'll want to keep in it as well, since they're the only sole customers. So it's interesting. Deadpool in Formula One. I wonder if we get to see like a documentary like Wrexham, though, where we now suddenly finally see people exploring the story of Alpine from the inside, watching how Alpine has 15 different heads managing the same team. And for all you know, people might actually become Alpine fans, Kunal. Do you think have you ever met an Alpine fan in real life? For once?
Not after Fernando Alonso left, no.
They were not Alpine fans, really. They were just unfaithful. But have you ever met an Alpine fan in your life? Or even a Renault fan in the new guys, not 2005-6, but yeah.
No, that's true.
Have you ever met an
It's
Alpine
so strange. Yeah. Now, this was one way of doing it. We will buy fans by actually getting a Hollywood superstar, A-lister, buy into the team. But could this lead to a battle between the superheroes? Will all the other superheroes land up saying, we need to go get a team in Formula One. We have Iron Man, Tony Stark, right? Could it be Bruce Wayne? Could it be, I don't know, Bane? Could it be
Bruce Wayne?
Batman? Come on.
Whoa, Batman buying a...
Imagine Batman
actually,
buying a team and saying, let's call this car the official Batmobile. Crap. Anyway, we have lots to look forward to in Austria.
You know what, though? That's a good idea, though. I would pay for a mysterious investor from Kazakhstan to just name themselves Batman because they can. Because then when they buy in the team, it's going to be lovely. But I find it amazing. I really think that they might just try a documentary of sorts for the team, like they have with Wrexham FC. It'll be a fun way to mobilize the fans, and I really think they're onto something in the marketing side of things. But yeah, I just wonder. But hey, you know what the fun fact is, Kunal? Are you good with your childhood racing movies, like movies for children? Have you seen Cars?
No.
Have you seen Planes?
I live a very interesting life, Samuel. The only time the TV has ever come on, ever since I can remember, is Formula One Grand Prix weekends.
Okay, but you surely might have seen Turbo, right? The movie where the snail ends up winning the Indy 500?
No, but I have seen Driven, which was pretty much the most pathetic movie ever with Sylvester Stallone.
Don't slander Driven, Kunal. It was the movie that my entire racing childhood was based upon. Do you remember Sylvester Stallone driving in the streets of, was it Chicago without a helmet? But no, to the point. Turbo, the voice of Turbo at least, has bought a Formula One team. It's amazing. Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
It's life coming full circle. It's... I don't know.
Imagine
that just comes in the middle of nowhere.
Imagine if there wasn't hybrid turbo. Would Turbo still have bought the It's not just manufacturers.
Call it the turbo hybrid now.
Yeah, it's not just the manufacturers who are interested in these regulations, as we can see now.
Interesting stuff. But you know what? I think it's that time where we should return to the more serious stuff and get to the proper action for this Austrian GP. Because now, folks, we have F1 Stats Guru coming in with the stats preview. And Kunal mentioned a few really fun numbers earlier on a couple of minutes ago. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. F1 Stats Guru has a lot more that'll basically enhance the whole viewing experience of this race. So let's listen into it.
Hey folks, it's time to do the stats preview of the Austrian Grand Prix. My name is Sundaram, also known as the F1 Stats Guru. Let's get straight into the numbers. Now, the Red Bull Ring is a very exciting circuit. It's the 5th shortest circuit on the calendar, but it has the least number of corners, just 10, and also has the quickest overall lap time, just 63 seconds. That means cars are usually bunched up together, especially in qualifying, and the pole margin is very minimal, usually less than 2/10. But this is the Red Bull Ring, and it is Red Bull's home race. So all of the stats today are only going to be about Red Bull because that's where all the interesting stuff has been happening. It's going to be a sprint weekend, and Max Verstappen and Red Bull are the only ones to have scored in every single F1 sprint event so far, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can continue that streak. The sprint is going to be 24 laps long, and as you already know, this year the DRS zone gets activated just one lap into the sprint as well. So that means drivers are expected to utilize the DRS zone up to 69 times during the course of the 24 lap sprint, which is the highest that we've seen at any sprint event. And the other interesting fact is 80% of the overtakes at the Red Bull Ring happen at the DRS zones. So you'd probably expect to see a lot of overtakes during the sprint as well as in the race, but it's not as easy as it seems, because although we have 3 fast and long straights, it usually ends with a slow corner. So overtaking can get a little tricky at times. If Max Verstappen claims pole, it'll be the first time in his career that he's taken 4 pole positions at the same circuit. And it'll also mean that Red Bull have taken 5 consecutive pole positions in the hybrid era for the very first time. But the biggest stat everyone's been talking about is that Max Verstappen has led the last 224 Grand Prix laps consecutively. And he's very, very close to breaking the all-time record. And to do that, all he has to do is lead all the laps of the Austrian Grand Prix, 71 of those, and the first 11 laps of the British Grand Prix. And then he'll break Alberto Ascari's long-standing 71-year-long record of 305 successive laps in the lead. If Red Bull can also win this race, they'll become the 4th team to take 10 or more successive wins in Formula 1 after McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes. But my favorite stat of this preview is that in the last 3 years, a Red Bull driver has ended up in the gravel at turn 4 after making contact with a Mercedes-powered car every single time. In 2020, it was Alex Albon. In 2021, it was Sergio Perez. And once again, it was Perez in 2022. Will that happen this time out again? Who's going to be the Mercedes driver? Who's going to be the Red Bull driver? We don't know. We have to wait and watch. But that was the stats preview. I hope you folks enjoyed this one. For more such interesting stats and facts from this race weekend, do follow me on my Twitter and Instagram under the name F1 Stats Guru. I'll see you folks very soon.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Inside Line F1 podcast and our Austrian GP preview. We have bantered a lot on Red Bull Racing. We have bantered a lot on Max Verstappen just dominating everywhere. But I think let's just spend a couple of more minutes, Kunal, to talk about the lower midfield, because we're getting to see a bit of a fun battle there as well. Obviously, lots of long straights, which would be great for Williams. The catch is, as you mentioned, in the second half of the circuit, we have lots of high downforce corners. So that little quirk is going to be very interesting to watch as well. How close are the gaps in the midfield, and what can someone like Nick de Vries do, who's especially under pressure after all the quotes that have recently come out and they've been blown up, basically?
Yeah, well, all he has to do is go. He's got 2 chances to qualify and to finish the race in a decent pace. So let's just see how it goes. But I pretty much presume that thanks to our interview and all the sensational media quotes that have been picked up, one of the talking points this weekend for Horner and for Nick de Vries will be around Nick de Vries. That's what it's going to be like. And, let's see. But I predict, Somil, I'm good at finding trends. 2 races ago, Gasly blocked Sainz in Canada. Sainz got blocked by Gasly. I wonder if it's Gasly's turn again to block somebody, because he's again got 2 chances this weekend to block, because SQ1 and SQ1 track limits. It's going to be, the last time this race happened last year, we actually called it the track limits Austrian Grand Prix. Track limits is going to be something we'll look at. But Fernando Alonso, he said he never wants to be off the podium. And he went back onto the podium in Canada. But interestingly, he's never finished in the top 4 in Austria. So let's see what he comes up with.
Wow.
And Carlos Sainz, who you will pick for victory this weekend, Somil, hasn't had a podium this season.
Please don't disappoint me like that. It was meant to be my secret prediction. I thought very slyly nobody stopped noticing. Nobody started to notice it at the start of this year. But no, I still put my money on Carlos Sainz every single time. But I think you're right. Track limits is going to be the major prediction. At least 3 to 4 drivers will be getting quite a few warnings on that. But for the win, there's no doubt. For P2, Kunal, I am going for Lewis Hamilton. What about you?
I will go for Fernando Alonso. I think...
Love it.
Epic. I have a feeling. Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton on the podium. I don't know where the other two will stand, but that's probably going to be the podium. Will that podium be the most frequent podium finish of the season? Could that be something that could come out, and Red Bull, they'll go for their 9th win this season. I can't remember. I've lost count of the numbers. They're inching in on McLaren's win record from 88, 89 or something. But yeah, lots of things to look forward to. I'm eager to see if the 3 drivers who never made it into Q1 actually make it into Q1. Zhou Guanyu, Nick De Vries, and Logan Sargent. And then there are 2 drivers, Sargent and De Vries, who have not scored a point. So let's see how that goes. But before we go, you remember the cool down room conversation that happened in Canada? Lewis is telling, you have a nice rear, and then Fernando says, who, mine, whatever. And Valtteri Bottas felt left out of that whole rear-ending conversation. So guess what did he do?
Oh, God.
He did a midsummer picture of his rear in Finland, and he put it up on social media.
Well, that's a happy ending, if there ever was one, quite literally. I literally know people who get really... what's the right word I'm looking for? I can't say happy or excited because both of them will have a pretty different connotation. But people who enjoy Valtteri Bottas' backside picks, I don't know for what reason. It's just a quirk of Formula One, I suppose. Just prepping for Drive to Survive before it comes out. But let's hope we get a great race this weekend for all the factors that we mentioned earlier on in this episode.
And since we're on Bottas, Bottas has the fastest lap time here, 62 seconds, 62.8 or 9 or something. I wonder if we will ever get here with a sub 1 minute. Like, of course, the cars have to go really quick for that, but the cars have been going quicker. One place where I wish there wasn't rain this weekend, like just see how close they could get there. But either way, I'll take whatever it comes our way as long as it's entertaining. There are battle for positions. And yes, like I said, everybody listening in from Mumbai can watch the race with Somil this Sunday at Dadar Social.
It'll be amazing. There's going to be a big community discussion that we'd love to have you for. And also, in case you're looking for something to listen to or watch in the meantime, remember, our Helmut Marko special interview is there on the podcast. So feel free to listen to that. And in case you've gotten here, I hope you've enjoyed what you've been listening to. Feel free to share this podcast with any friends or family members who love Formula One. And also to subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast as well. We'll be back with the race review on Sunday. Until then, have fun, folks. Bye-bye.